Welcome back to Wordy Tales. Have you ever felt like you were failing, no matter how hard you tried? Have you ever looked at someone else's success and asked, why not me? Today, we have a story that answers that question. It is a story about a boy, a garden, and the three secrets of true genius. By the end of this video, you will not only learn a life-changing lesson, but you will also master three Native American idioms to help you speak English like a local. So find a quiet spot, take a deep breath, and let's begin. In a quiet corner of a sleepy American town, where ancient oak trees lined the streets like silent guardians, lived a 12-year-old boy named Leo. To the neighbors, Leo was not just a boy. He was a force of nature. He was the summer breeze that rattled the windows. He was a sudden burst of laughter echoing down the hallway. He lived and breathed for the soccer field every single afternoon until the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in bruised shades of purple. Leo could be found there. His feet controlled the ball with such intuitive grace that it seemed less like a sport and more like a conversation between him and the earth. But this particular Tuesday afternoon was different. The air was crisp, carrying the dry scent of fallen leaves. Usually this was Leo's favorite season, but today the beauty was lost on him. Leo walked through the front door just as the golden hour faded into gray twilight. He didn't slam the door. He didn't rush to the kitchen to scavenge for a snack. Instead, the house was filled with the heavy, dull sound of his backpack dropping to the floor. Thud. He collapsed onto the living room sofa, burying his face in the cushions, and let out a long, heavy sigh that seemed to empty his lungs completely. Clutched in his hand was a math textbook, open to a page covered in angry red marks, and a disappointing grade that stared back at him like a cold, unfeeling eye. The room was silent, save for the ticking clock. Then soft footsteps approached. It was his father, a man of few words, a gardener with hands rough from the soil, but eyes full of infinite warmth. He walked in from the backyard, smelling of pine needles and damp earth. He immediately noticed the heavy cloud hanging over his son. He didn't ask questions right away. He knew that sometimes questions feel like interrogations. Instead, he poured a glass of cool water, the ice clinking softly against the glass, and sat down beside the boy. "It feels like a heavy day, doesn't it?" his father asked, his voice low and steady. Leo peeled himself away from the cushion. His eyes were red. "It's math again. Dad, I failed the test. I really tried. But that's not even the worst part. It's Ben, my neighbor. He got a perfect score again. 100%. He barely even studies, Dad, yet he solves the hardest problems like they are nothing. I stayed up late. I missed my favorite show, but the numbers just get jumbled in my head. Why can't I be smart like him? Why am I so slow?" The father listened. He knew this pain. It was the trap of comparison. He gently patted Leo's shoulder. "Finish your water, then come join me in the garden. The old willow tree might have the answer you're looking for." Under the drooping branches of the willow tree, the father spoke. "Leo, I am not going to teach you equations tonight. Instead, I want to teach you three lessons about life, but you must discover them yourself. Here is your first challenge. Tomorrow, invite Ben to the field. I want you to play a real, serious soccer match with him. Don't go easy on him. Play like it's the championship." The next day, under the piercing blue sky, Leo transformed. On the grass, he was a king. He moved like a dancer. He dribbled with a rhythm that beat in his chest. He struck the ball with power and precision, scoring goal after goal. He felt the wind rush past his ears. He was fluid. He was unstoppable. Ben, on the other hand, the math genius, looked like a fish out of water. Poor Ben. He ran awkwardly. He tripped over his own feet. He gasped for air after only 5 minutes. At one point, he kicked the air instead of the ball and nearly fell over. Despite the clumsiness, they laughed until their sides hurt. That evening, Leo met his father, glowing with pride. I ran circles around him, Dad. Ben honestly has 2 left feet. The father nodded slowly. Freeze that moment in your mind, Leo. Yesterday, you wished you were Ben because of his math skills. You felt broken. But today, Ben probably wished he had your agility. The first lesson is this. We are all geniuses in our own worlds. You cannot judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. Ben has his ocean of numbers. You have your field of motion. That difference doesn't make you less than him. It makes you unique. Now, the father continued, time for the second challenge. Tomorrow, stop looking at Ben's grades. Be a detective. Watch his habits. Leo accepted the mission, and he saw things he had never noticed before. At the cafeteria, Ben wasn't talking about movies. He was calculating the change in his head. During recess, Ben sat on a bench, solving a Rubik's Cube, his fingers moving in a blur. Even outside, Leo saw Ben counting the petals falling from a flower, completely fascinated by the geometry of nature. He's obsessed, Dad, Leo reported back. He treats math like a game. He never stops. The father smiled warmly. That is the second lesson. Ben isn't good at math just because he was born that way. He is a master because he practices it in every breath he takes. You are good at soccer because you touch the ball thousands of times before you even think about it. To be great, you don't need magic. You need the consistency to turn practice into a habit. Greatness starts with small things, like counting flower petals. Is there a third lesson? Leo asked. There is, the father said seriously. This is the hardest one. Tomorrow, study math 3 times harder than usual. Do not stop. Leo locked himself in his room. He sat at his desk, the book open like an enemy. 1 hour passed. The clock ticked loudly. Tick, tock. It sounded like a hammer. 2 hours passed. His legs twitched, longing to run. By the 3rd hour, a throbbing headache set in. The numbers blurred and danced. His brain felt like dry sand. Every minute felt like an hour. Eventually, unable to fight it, his head hit the desk and he fell into a deep, exhausted sleep. He woke up to his father's gentle hand. I failed, Dad, Leo whispered. It was torture. My brain actually hurts. The father looked at him with love. You didn't fail, son. You learned the truth. You are exhausted because you are forcing yourself to master something your heart does not love. Discipline without passion is just hard labor. You can play soccer for 5 hours and finish smiling. Why? Because you love it. If you want to be brilliant, you have 2 choices. Pursue what you love or learn to find joy in what you must do. When there is love, the burden becomes light. That night, under the moonlight, Leo finally understood. He didn't need to be Ben. He just needed to be the best Leo he could be. What a beautiful journey. Now, to help you master American English, let's practice the shadowing technique. I will read a key sentence from the story, and then I will pause. During the pause, I want you to repeat exactly what I said out loud. Try to copy my intonation and speed. Are you ready? Let's go. Sentence number 1. In a quiet corner of a sleepy American town, lived a 12-year-old boy named Leo. Sentence number 2. He lived and breathed for the soccer field. Sentence number 3. You cannot judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. Sentence number 4. Greatness starts with small things, like counting flower petals. Sentence number 5. Discipline without passion is just hard labor. Excellent work. Practicing out loud is the fastest way to fluency. Before we go, let's review the American idioms we learned today. Number 1. A fish out of water. This describes someone who is in a situation they are not suited for, just like Ben on the soccer field. Number 2. Two left feet. This is a funny way to say someone is clumsy or uncoordinated when dancing or playing sports. Number 3. Weighing on your mind. This means you are worried or thinking about something heavily. Remember, find the garden where you can grow best. Thank you for listening to Wordy Tales. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe. Keep learning and keep growing.